This week, it's the Eagles and the Browns, and you can listen to it on 97.3 ESPN. Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms, and their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds is with us as the injury report just released, a fresh release, Adam Caplan, and no injuries report. It's a clean bill of health for the Eagles.
Yeah, so that, look, it doesn't mean that injuries magically went away, just so people understand that that's not the way it works. What it means is they don't have a game status designation. What does that mean? They're all available to play, and that includes Sidney Brown, by the way. Sidney Brown talked to us, though, that he's going to be activated. They have, by the way, just so you know, they have till 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow to activate Anaya Smith or Brown, or they can't play this week. All look good. So then the next question would be, Mike, if Sidney Brown's the one who gets activated, what's his role? We've said throughout it, there's a chance he'll be their third safety. That might be a little bit rich to think he could do that immediately, since he had not practiced before this week since last season. So we have to be careful of our expectations, Mike, come off an ACL injury. That's why, Mike, despite how good he looked running around and the media was able to see that, you're talking about 9 months since he had practiced. We have to understand that you can't just snap your fingers and expect the guy to be where he was before the injury. And also, we have to know, Mike, that he's new to these coaches. A brand new coaching staff on defense, save Jeremiah Washburn, who's their edges coach. But they have a new defensive backs coach, Christian Parker, who had to get to know Sidney, and looks good. I mean, right now it sounds like they'll activate him, but again, the deadline's tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern.
All right, so obviously that could be a possibility that Sidney Brown is back. Healthy. That means, just to clarify, Brown, Lane Johnson, Devontae Smith, and anybody else you want to throw in there, but I think they're all a lot more minimal than those three guys.
Yes. And by the way, and I would say this, and I people would come at me on Twitter and say, I'll say, hey, so-and-so has been cleared to play. And if a guy doesn't wind up playing, I always say this, barring some unforeseen setback. I know you're a Seinfeld guy, Mike, like me and millions of others. I'm going to give you a trivia question. See if you can get it. Because you are Mr. Seinfeld, correct? Are you still a big Seinfeld guy?
I was very, very, very good. And, I haven't watched in a little while, but I think I have a memory. I think I can still remember some stuff.
And I know you did some trivia like me. I've done some trivia. So what did Sid Farkas say to George Costanza about his job at E.D. Grandmont?
Well, he told him to get out, basically.
No, before that, no. What did he tell him about? He shook his hand. As he was shaking his hand, what did he say?
Jeez.
Barring any unforeseen incident.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So, barring any unforeseen incident we don't know about, these guys, like blank chips flying. Okay, let's go over this real quick. A.J. Brown's been cleared, barring a setback in pregame warm-ups or their walkthrough, by the way. We need to say that. They have a walkthrough tomorrow, usually around 10 a.m. Barring an incident before the game, he'll be in the lineup. Nakobe Dean with the ankle, that was a new injury. He's good to go. He's been cleared. Lane Johnson's been cleared out of the protocol. Nia Smith, it sounds like he could play if they need him to, but the thing with him is, we do want to mention this before we move on. So Nia Smith is more of a slot receiver. They don't really need that right now. They need an outside receiver. But they only have 4 receivers, Mike, right now on their 53-man roster. So someone would have to come off the practice squad, or Nia Smith would have to be activated. Devontae Smith's been cleared out of concussion protocol, and so is Johnny Wilson, who had a concussion. So, Mike, no excuses. And by the way, the line has moved up, which you could also talk to if you want.
It was 9 the other day. What's it up to now?
9.5. And by the way, it opened Sunday night at 6. Now, someone told me this is comical. I know lines could come out. The lines makers, once the schedule gets announced, they put lines out for every game. It was actually 3 in May, someone told me. So now it's 9.5, depending on which book. Look, you know why it's moved? It's gotten bigger because the whole country thinks the Browns are garbage. Eagles are coming off a bye, and now, by the way, they're healthy. So why shouldn't they crush them? I know every fan now thinks like, if the Eagles don't win big, then it's a failure. I don't look at it that way.
I agree with you, and I'll tell you, it's a microcosm of everything in sports. you're either the best or you suck. There is never any in between, right? There is no in between. There aren't just good players. There aren't just average players. It's either you're an awesome elite player or you're garbage. This Browns team struggling at quarterback. They went to the playoffs last year with Joe Flacco, but their defense was really good and they had so many injuries last year, and they have a lot of injuries again this week. But the quarterback has really held this team back.
Yeah, so, Mike, we should mention, Greg Cosell from NFL Films works for us, and for Jeff and I, and we did the subject, because the Eagles they're coming back from the bye, and we had broken down their tape every week anyway, so we didn't really need to do a lot of that. So what we did on this week's Inside the Tape with Cosell, which you could watch, I would watch it. You could listen to the pod if you want, but you want to see the visual. We used all we did is use all 22. Myself, Jeff, and Greg. It was more Greg, of course, because he's the tape expert. Greg breaks down Deshaun Watson, and we show you why he's struggling. We show you a bunch of clips. So we showed a bunch of clips, Mike, and it's a half an hour film breakdown, a little bit of the Eagles, but a lot on the Browns, and it gets you ready for this game. That's Inside the Birds on any platform, as you've mentioned, or really YouTube. And you got to hear how Greg breaks down Watson. Greg, I could tell you, we're going to leave the off the field stuff, obviously, with Watson somewhere else. But Greg was really the first person I talked to. He loved Watson's tape in 2020. He said this is the next great quarterback. And by the way,
he wasn't wrong for a time there.
Mike, he was phenomenal in 2020. Now, the team was absolute garbage. I think that I'd have to look. Maybe there were like 2 or 3 wins that season. But you can't, because I vote in 2 polls, you can't vote for a guy to be an MVP if the team has 2 wins. At quarterback, that's not going to work. You get laughed at. But, Mike, that's the last time he played good football. In 21, he didn't play. He was inactive every week. You know what's crazy? Watson was actually a backup defensive back in practice on the scout team in 21 for the Texans. Then, he got traded, had to miss over half the season in 22. He was terrible when he came back. Injured and bad last year, and he's just really bad. He's one of the 3 or 4 worst quarterbacks in the National Football League right now.
Banged up on both sides of the ball, this Browns team. It seems to be a constant problem for them. But how will that kind of affect them on Sunday?
Yeah, so let's look at it, Mike. Nick Chubb's not going to play. He's coming back from multi-ligament injury, and this is why they don't run the ball well. Jerome Ford's a pretty good backup, but he's not explosive like Chubb. They do expect David Njoku, their tight end. He's dealing with a high ankle sprain and a knee injury. Last week they limited his snaps. I don't know how much he'll play, but his nickname's the Chief. He's a really good football player, an outstanding blocker, and a very good athletic tight end. Boy, did him and Flacco hook up last year really, really well. Their offensive line's been decimated by injury. They're going to be without center Evan Posick. He's out with a knee injury. You're going to see Nick Harris is built like it's funny. He's built like a fire hydrant. This guy. He's a small, squatty guy, but he's a veteran, so he'll start there. They're starting right guard Wyatt Teller's out. He's on IR. Jedrick Wills has been out of the lineup. Their left tackle. Jack Conklin has not played yet. Their right tackle. Now Stefanski said today he'll be available. They don't know if he'll start. Defensively, Myles Garrett's playing with a bad foot. He's got Achilles tendonitis. That's why Jim Schwartz, you and I talked about this on Tuesday, is blitzing. Old Eagle, Jordan Hicks, who played great for Minnesota and Brian Flores last season. He didn't play last week. Devin Bush, a former first-round pick for the Steelers, filled in. He's really not very good. He's a backup. Denzel Ward, they expect him to play. He's got a hamstring injury. They're down 3 safeties this week, Mike. So you asked me what's the problem? This is the problem.
Yeah, well, this is a banged-up team, too. They have scored 20 points or less than 20 points, I should say, in each of their first 5 games. If the Eagles' defense holds them under 20, Adam Caplan, it would be the first team in 10 years to fail to reach 20 points in each of their first 6 games of the season. That was the Jaguars that year. They finished 3-13. So that's what, this offense, how bad they've been, and that's what the Eagles' defense has to live up to here. You can't give up 20 points to this team.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've talked to a lot of people around the NFL who either work with Vic Fangio. I actually talked to someone who's with the Bears today who loves Vic. He says Vic's a genius. But he agrees with what Brian Hoyer told us on our show last week for Patreon, is that Hoyer was with Vic in 2016. He said it's real simple with Vic. He's not going to blitz. He must win with 4 or 5 man pressure. If he doesn't win with that, it becomes a problem. Well, Mike, you know what's happened so far. Coming out of the bye, I know Deshaun Watson's been terrible. It's been a human turnover and sack machine. But Deshaun Watson's arm strength, and if you watch this video that we broke down with Cosell, the arm strength is not the problem. It's everything else. Don't let Deshaun Watson beat you. Now, I'm so fascinated to see what Vic Fangio does here going forward, Mike.
He's averaging 4.8 yards an attempt this season. 4.8.
That's embarrassing. So, Mike, below 6 is thought the way it's explained to me is bad. If you're below 5, it means you're checking it down. You're not trusting your eyes.
By the way, Adam, that number is there's 386 quarterbacks to record 175 or more passes in the first 5 games in a season in NFL history. Watson, 4.8, is the worst in NFL history.
Oy.
That's what you're up against. Your defense gets beat this week. You got a lot of splaining to do.
I know, and it's funny. I just did Cleveland radio, and they said Sirianni in trouble if they lose. Every interview I've done this week, I've done about 15. And about half of them asking about Sirianni. I say the same thing. It's not like Jeffrey Lurie to fire a coach early. I don't buy it that it would happen. It would put the seat even hotter. That would be embarrassing. But, boy, that would be bad for Vic. If Vic Fangio and his defense is the reason for this loss, because I rated it, the public enemies. Let me ask you if you agree with this, because I look at social and see what people are saying. Sirianni's still clearly number 1. Hurts is number 2, and Fangio is number 3. Now, should Fangio be number 2, Mike, and Jalen be number 3?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, the defense, I don't know. The hard part with Hurts is he has. I mean, it's hard for me to judge somebody based on not having what you thought you were going to have.
Fair enough. Here's another one. Should Jordan Davis be 4?
Jordan Davis, I think we've gotten to the point that he is what he is, right? Or are we still holding out hope?
No, there are reasons why, Mike. It's not so much on the field. He's a good kid off the field, but it's his drive to excel.
Yeah, I was going to say, he almost seems like too nice of a guy.
He's a good kid, but, Mike, I could tell you the word around the league was, and Jeff knows this too, he and I have talked about it privately, the word around the league was how much he loves football. He's just a good, happy-go-lucky kid.
Yep.
But how much does he really love football? And you can't just look. He showed up too, like Carter did against New Orleans. But you got to show up every week. It's got to mean something to you. You would think playing at University of Georgia, a national champion, which he was, you would think like he would bring a stronger drive. But it hasn't happened.
By the way, Eagles off a bye have won 3 straight. That is Nick Sirianni turned into a little mini Andy Reid here. So you got that going in. So there's a lot of things favoring the Eagles here, and as you said, the line has moved into their favor here. I don't know what the read on that is for you, but this seems like a game that the odds makers are saying this is the easiest game of the week here Philadelphia has. Yeah,
biggest number I saw so far. So, look, when we talk Tuesday, we're expecting Eagles win. And obviously, if they don't, we'll give you the reasons why they lost. And even Jeff said it on a show that we did, I think that dropped Thursday, whatever it was, Wednesday or Thursday morning. He thinks that they need to have a convincing win for you to buy into this. That's fine. I mean, obviously, but by the way, the betting public is heavily on the Eagles. I can tell you as a fact. Doesn't mean they're right, though. Okay, sometimes the line tells you that the public is wrong, but man, everyone is hitting the Eagles this week. They're expecting Deshaun Watson to get taken to the woodshed again and play poorly, and Jim Schwartz coming back to Philly, man. This is going to be interesting.
All right, there he is, Adam Caplan, and you can check out the Inside the Birds podcast on all podcasting platforms, their pregame show, and all of the postgame coverage at Inside the Birds on YouTube. Check them out all week long on Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. All right, Adam Caplan, good to catch up, buddy.
You too, man. Thanks.
All right, Adam Caplan here, and, of course, Football at 4 is brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365.